Cleopatra. Born 70 by 69 BC, died August 30 BC, Alexandria. Was an Egyptian queen of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Famous in history and drama as the lover of Julius Caesar, and later as a wife of Mark Antony. She became queen on the death of her father, Ptolemy XII, in 51 BC and ruled successively with her two brothers Ptolemy XIII. (51–47) and Ptolemy XIV, 47–44, and her son Ptolemy XV Caesar, 44–30. After the Roman armies of Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, defeated their combined forces, Antony and Cleopatra committed suicide, and Egypt fell under Roman domination. Cleopatra actively influenced Roman politics at a crucial period, and she came to represent, as did no other woman of classical antiquity, the prototype of the romantic femme fatale. Daughter of King Ptolemy XII, Cleopatra was destined to become the last queen of the Macedonian dynasty that ruled Egypt between the death of Alexander the Great in 323 BC and its annexation by Rome in 30 BC. The line had been founded by Alexander's general Ptolemy, who became King Ptolemy XII of Egypt. Cleopatra was of Macedonian descent and had little, if any, Egyptian blood, although the classical author Plutarch wrote that she alone of her house took the trouble to learn Egyptian and, for political reasons, styled herself as the new Isis, a title that distinguished her from the earlier Ptolemaic Queen Cleopatra III, who had also claimed to be the living embodiment of the goddess Isis. Coin portraits of Cleopatra show a countenance alive rather than beautiful, with a sensitive mouth, firm chin, liquid eyes, broad forehead, and prominent nose. When Ptolemy XII died in 51 BC, the throne passed to his young son, Ptolemy XIII, and daughter, Cleopatra VII. The 18-year-old Cleopatra, older than her brother by about 8 years, became the dominant ruler. Evidence shows that the first decree in which Ptolemy's name precedes Cleopatra's was in October of 50 BC. Soon after, Cleopatra was forced to flee Egypt for Syria, where she raised an army and in 48 BC returned to face her brother at Pelusium, on Egypt's eastern border. The murder of the Roman general Pompey, who had sought refuge from Ptolemy XIII at Pelusium, and the arrival of Julius Caesar brought temporary peace. Cleopatra realized that she needed Roman support, or, more specifically, Caesar's support, if she was to regain her throne. Cleopatra was determined to keep her throne and, if possible, to restore the glories of the first Ptolemies and recover as much as possible of their dominions, which had included southern Syria and Palestine. Caesar and Cleopatra became lovers and spent the winter besieged in Alexandria. Roman reinforcements arrived the following spring, and Ptolemy XIII fled and drowned in the Nile. Cleopatra, now married to her brother Ptolemy XIV, was restored to her throne. It took Caesar 2 years to extinguish the last flames of Pompeian opposition. As soon as he returned to Rome, in 46 BC, he celebrated a 4-day triumph, the ceremonial in honor of a general after his victory over a foreign enemy in which Arsinoe, Cleopatra's younger and hostile sister, was paraded. Cleopatra paid at least one state visit to Rome, accompanied by her husband, brother, and son. She was accommodated in Caesar's private villa beyond the Tiber River and may have been present to witness the dedication of a golden statue of herself in the temple of Venus Genetrix, the ancestress of the Julian family to which Caesar belonged. Soon after her return to Alexandria, in 44 BC, Cleopatra's co-ruler, Ptolemy XIV, died. Cleopatra now ruled with her infant son, Ptolemy XV Caesar. When, at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC, Caesar's assassins were routed, Mark Antony became the heir apparent of Caesar's authority, or so it seemed, for Caesar's great-nephew and personal heir, Octavian, was but a sickly boy. Antony, now controller of Rome's eastern territories, sent for Cleopatra so that she might explain her role in the aftermath of Caesar's assassination. She set out for Tarsus in Asia Minor loaded with gifts. Having delayed her departure to heighten Antony's expectation, she entered the city by sailing up the Cydnus River in a barge while dressed in the robes of the new Isis. Antony, who equated himself with the god Dionysus, was captivated, forgetting his wife, Fulvia, who in Italy was doing her best to maintain her husband's interests against the growing menace of young Octavian. Antony returned to Alexandria, where he treated Cleopatra not as a protected sovereign but as an independent monarch. In 40 BC, Cleopatra gave birth to twins, whom she named Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene. Antony had already left Alexandria to return to Italy, where he was forced to conclude a temporary settlement with Octavian. As part of this settlement, he married Octavian's sister, Octavia, Fulvia having died. 3 years later, Antony was convinced that he and Octavian could never come to terms. His marriage to Octavian now in irrelevance, he returned to the east and reunited with Cleopatra. Antony needed Cleopatra's financial support for his postponed Parthian campaign. In return, Cleopatra requested the return of much of Egypt's eastern empire, including large portions of Syria and Lebanon, and even the rich balsam groves of Jericho. Antony proclaimed Caesarion to be Caesar's son, thus relegating Octavian, who had been adopted by Caesar as his son and heir, to legal illegitimacy. Cleopatra was hailed as Queen of Kings, Caesarion as King of Kings. Alexander Helios was awarded Armenia and the territory beyond the Euphrates. His infant brother Ptolemy the lands to the west of it. The boy's sister, Cleopatra Selene, was to be ruler of Cyrene. It was clear to Octavian, watching from Rome, that Antony intended his extended family to rule the civilized world. A propaganda war erupted. Octavian seized Antony's will, or what he claimed to be Antony's will, from the temple of the Vestal Virgins, to whom it had been entrusted, and revealed to the Roman people that not only had Antony bestowed Roman possessions on a foreign woman, but intended to be buried beside her in Egypt. The rumor quickly spread that Antony also intended to transfer the capital from Rome to Alexandria. Antony and Cleopatra spent the winter of 32–31 BC in Greece. The Roman Senate deprived Antony of his prospective consulate for the following year, and it then declared war against Cleopatra. The naval battle of Actium, in which Octavian faced the combined forces of Antony and Cleopatra on September 2, 31 BC, was a disaster for the Egyptians. Antony and Cleopatra fled to Egypt, and Cleopatra retired to her mausoleum as Antony went off to fight his last battle. Receiving the false news that Cleopatra had died, Antony fell on his sword. In a last excess of devotion, he had himself carried to Cleopatra's retreat, and there died, after bidding her to make her peace with Octavian. Cleopatra buried Antony and then committed suicide. The means of her death is uncertain, though classical writers came to believe that she had killed herself by means of an asp, symbol of divine royalty. She was 39 and had been a queen for 22 years and Antony's partner for 11. They were buried together, as both of them had wished, and with them was buried the Roman Republic.